PJ is a hardworking, hands-on, down-to-earth native of a small Texas town. After putting himself through college and graduating from Texas A&M, he went on to buy, grow, and sell a restaurant business in Belize. He later merged his passion for business and his love of automobiles as the GM of an auto dealership. PJ grew that business from 1 employee to 19, scaling to 14 million in annual revenue. PJ has spent the last few years showing shops how to organize their teams, enhance their operations, and maximize their profits. In his spare time, PJ loves to travel with his wife and their 2 dogs. Thanks for being here today to talk to us, PJ.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm going to share a screen with you guys, and happy to proceed. Can you guys see my presentation screen now? A thumbs up. There we go. So that's interesting. Actually, I forgot that we even had that speaker's profile, so it was kind of odd to hear. Yeah, so I have a very robust background. I have been in sales in some form or fashion though since I was about 18 years old, and I've taken the opportunity. I've had some pretty positive feedback on a presentation that I've done in the past as well for another web-based conference, if you will. And it was about, it was more on the sales process, and something that I don't think gets touched on a lot. There is a lot in operations and whatnot in terms of metrics to measure, obviously, and Tekmetric. We love metrics and we love being able to measure those. And it was very interesting. ATE last year was the first one that we got to attend, and we loved it, frankly. You guys have got considerable resources and training at your fingertips, and honestly, we developed our product, a number of things, including our new time clock and technician efficiency tracking and job clocks, based around the feedback that we actually got at ATE. So it was really interesting, and we learned a lot. And it's so funny, as we travel to each and every region, we find things that many shop owners, some are things that they're great at, some things that they're not. So that was something we actually took away from that conference, and it was so much fun getting to meet and talk with everybody. So given my background, yes, I had a restaurant in Belize, and had never been in the restaurant industry before. Had never owned, it was the first business I'd ever owned. I bought it when I was 29 years old. I sold it just a little over a year later, and I made over 50% return on that business. But it was during the recession. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to try it. I wanted to take a risk. And so I did that. And shortly thereafter, I did get into the automotive space. Now, I was in a franchise dealership, and so my experience was a little bit different than many. I was told that the independent shops were kind of the enemy, right? Like, how do we keep those customers coming to a dealership? And the more I learned, the more that I watched people gravitate to the independent world. And as that happened, so be it. Shortly thereafter, 2 friends of mine down in Houston, Texas, founded Tekmetric. It was an idea. And so I'm going to touch on a little bit of that. But what my experience is the sales process and why do people purchase, right? My role at Tekmetric is the director of business development. So my job is to go out to conferences and build relationships with everything from integration partners to multi-shop owners to multi-state franchises or larger multi-shop owners. And so in my experience, I found a few things that do work and a lot of things that don't work. And so that being said, I was very fortunate, and I do appreciate the opportunity to, I guess, share with you guys some of the things that have worked for us in the past and some things that definitely have not. So the title of this is just Stop Selling Parts and Labor and Make More Profit. And I'll go into that a little bit with just some of the experience that I have in shop owners that I talk to on a daily basis, where they're magnificent technicians. They're new into the business, and they decided to go out on a limb and live the American dream and start their own company. But oftentimes they have not had the experience that I have had in presenting things in hopefully the best light, so that someone says yes instead of, oh, let me think about it, or no, when maybe we should have just presented that in a different way. And so a very quick background on Tekmetric. is this. So our CEO, Sunil, was literally running around. He decided he was going to go to med school, went to medical school, and to put himself through med school, he was literally installing things like iPod kits and features like puddle lights that didn't used to come on Mercedes and BMWs, to help put himself through school. And so he had a passion for cars at a very early age, and he decided that that passion was greater than what it was for medicine. He decided to, even after his residency and after med school, to not become a doctor. Um, and perfect timing, during a recession in 2007, he decided to open a business, and he opened up Motorworks in Houston, Texas. And so he owned that all the way through 2019. So our CEO, is a shop owner. He started it from scratch, completely bootstrapped this thing himself. And he owned it, like I said, until 2019, and actually sold it to his master technician. Completed the sale of it, so he could focus entirely on Tekmetric. But in 2015 is where the idea was born. It was literally Christmas. They're sitting around talking and said, I have to. He was faxing customers estimates. He was texting people from his personal cell phone, which he really didn't want to give out. Taking pictures with a digital camera and so forth. And he just said, why can't I get all these things from one single software to run my business? And so that's where the idea was born. Now, Tekmetric was not obviously launched in 2015. It was actually launched in 2019, is when we launched our paid product. So there's a quick snapshot on our little company. Now, all that being said, some very obvious examples, but some things that I want us to think about before we even go into some of the things that I love to talk about in creating a customer buying experience. And so everyone remembers Blockbuster. I think there is still one that's left operating in the world. I think it's something like in Alaska or something like that. But I remember going to Blockbuster, and I remember going in and sifting through movies and so forth. And Netflix comes in as a technology company. Netflix comes in and wants to make this a more frictionless experience. And they decided that, well, people want to, as technology has advanced, right? We had faster internet speeds. People had smart TVs. Wi-Fi was everywhere, and everyone had it in their houses. You weren't going into a dial-up computer that was plugged into a phone line. And they took that technology, and Blockbuster actually had the opportunity. The CEO brought this to the board, and they passed on it. They passed on it because 12% of their revenue was coming from late fees. So over 12%, they ended up losing effectively 100% of an entire industry. So technology was an answer for them. Similarly, think about things like Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora. The music industry changed entirely with the invention of things like Napster. And moving on from us having to buy an entire album for $15 when we really just wanted that one or two songs that we absolutely loved, and now we paid 99 cents for them. Retail stores. They, at a time right now, which is very difficult for so many business owners, and I don't want to make light of that, but an industry where retail stores are having a big problem. They're having difficulty. And Amazon is posting some of the biggest numbers that they've ever had. So again, they took a technology, to embrace technology, and changed an entire industry to say, we're going to do it differently. Of course, started with wanting to sell books online. Everybody wanted to read online, and shifted that and pivoted into something to where I'm not really sure what you cannot buy. I think someone actually told me you can buy a house. I think they have like prefabbed houses now on Amazon if you so choose. So that being said, the point of all of that is that you take these companies and you take the way that they have embraced technology and approached from a different angle. They focused on the customer buying experience, making it as easy as possible, not focusing on making, let's say, a $20 book sale, maybe selling it for $5, but I want to sell a lot more of them at $5. Or instead of selling that $15 or $20 music album, we sold a 99-cent song. They just sold a whole lot of them. So Tekmetric and I think that our industry, we do focus on these things. We take this as an opportunity to look to see what's coming down the pipeline and ways that we can possibly increase a customer's buying experience with the use of technology and things that are at our fingertips. 5G technology is probably going to change the entire world. It's going to be one of the largest technological advances, in my personal opinion, in maybe the last 20 years. The way that everything is going to become connected and work so much faster, the exchange of data that we all have is going to be paramount to anything that we've seen in the last 2 decades. So,
hey, can I interrupt you here? Could you
absolutely.
share your whole screen? We're not able to see your full screen.
Let's see. I can't see what you guys can see, but let's do, well,
Sorry.
I'm gonna go. No, it's okay. I'm not really sure why you guys can't see the whole screen. So let's try this. I'll bring it up another way. So is it just shrinking the screen down for you?
Yes.
Okay, let's try this. So tell me, is that any better?
There you go. Perfect. Thank
Much
you.
better? Okay, yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. So the frictionless customer experience is something that we have focused on with our background with Sunil in his shop. You know, he was, like I said, using 4, 5 different pieces of technology and trying to meet his customers' needs. He did focus on European shops and even some exotic cars. And so he's literally dealing with customers during the day, working on cars until 10, 12 o'clock at night in the evenings, because he was trying to juggle so many things to meet his customers' needs. They were a higher end clientele. And now what was a high end expectation, let's say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, is common now. And the new generation of clients that we have coming in now are unfortunately less interested in necessarily building a relationship with a shop owner or with a service advisor. What they're looking for is, you know, I know it's silly. I know the horsepower of a 2005 Ford F-150, a 2007 Porsche Carrera. You know, these ridiculous things. I'm a little bit of a gearhead, and I love these things. I love cars. They're not just a way for me to get from A to B. I have fun from A to B. Like I love being around cars. Not everybody's like that anymore. I talk to a lot of shop owners, and people, you know, they don't understand what you're trying to explain to them. They don't really care. It's just a tool to get from A to B. And so we have to take these things that are relatively mundane to people, things like ride sharing and just the ownership of tangible things, of possessions, has actually gone down quite a bit. People are not necessarily looking at a car as if it was an asset, and it's something of like a I don't know, a prestigious thing to own. Now it's just a tool to get from A to B and to work. And so this thing that they have to own and they have to use every once in a while has to have service. And so in order to get them to understand that and to enjoy that experience and understand what they need, I think about it almost like fast casual dining, right? And I've put in a couple of companies like Shake Shack or Chipotle, right? It's not just bottom of the barrel or run of the mill fast food. And it's not a fine dining experience. You get what you want. It's a little bit less expensive than, let's say, a high-end restaurant, but you're in and out. You got everything you wanted, and you enjoyed your experience in that time. And so the combination of creating that purchasing experience and then getting people to understand what we are trying to get them to say yes to, when it's something that they don't really care about. People care about a good burger, or people care about this burrito because they're hungry. They know they want it, and they want to find something that they enjoy. Selling a CV boot, to blown CV boot and CV axle to somebody, is really hard to get them very interested in that specific part. So the tools that we try to present and that we see a lot of shop owners asking for is, how do I explain that to someone, and how do I make that easier? So my personal experience has been that figuring out what you're selling, right, and what customers want is where I say we have to entirely step away from selling any parts and labor. And a lot of the webinars and training that I talk about is focusing on what do we sell. And there's a number of things that we have to determine here. And I believe that each and every shop owner should talk about is what is your differentiator, right? So your differentiators and right, your different product here is, I bring up things like Chick-fil-A. I mean, my gosh, you go into that place and it's like they hire college grads to run the drive-through, and everyone says my pleasure, and it's always a nice, fast experience, but you know what to expect. Everyone knows companies like Bose or Porsche, for example. You know, you want high-end sound quality. You want a fantastic driving experience. And we have to figure out what your product is. And with each and every shop, that could be something different. It could be a location to downtown. It could be that you offer a loaner vehicle to each and every customer. It could be that you have a shuttle service that you drop off people. It could be that you have full touchless purchasing experience. My gosh, that became popular overnight 90 days ago. And so my thing in my shop, what I always wanted to sell in our shop was peace of mind. And I think it goes along even more so now, almost 10, oh my gosh, yeah, 10 years after I got into the business. It goes even more so now. It's peace of mind is what I believe we're selling. People want to know that car, when they do have to jump into it, it is a reliable piece of machinery that they can go to work, they can take a family trip across the country and everything in between. And at the point in time where we start selling peace of mind, we hear yes more often than we hear no. The biggest things that I always told my service advisor, and I'll tell you guys a couple of funny stories, but was to always set reasonable expectations and meet and exceed them, no matter what you had to do. Don't want to set the bar too low. We want to give the customer what they want, even when some of them have high expectations, but we've got to meet or exceed those expectations, no matter what. The one thing, and I'm actually interested to know, and Jeff, you may know this off the top of your head, but I know that at the dealership that I was in, it cost us, for a new service customer, it cost us about $450 to obtain each and every new customer. For vehicle purchases, it cost us almost $1,000 per new customer that we acquired. That's the average, the national average in acquiring a new customer. I don't actually know what this number is, but in the independent industry, do you guys have any idea of what it costs for each new customer acquisition, how much you spend as an average in advertising for each new customer you get? I haven't. I honestly, everybody's kind of been all over the board in the circles that I've talked with. I've heard as low as $150, $200. I've heard as high as some of the numbers that I experienced. You know, the 400 and 500 range. So that being said, sorry, I didn't mean to go too quickly. I think that, you know, meeting and exceeding customers' expectations is going to go along with obviously keeping a customer in-house, not losing that customer, doing whatever we have to do, managing, selling that peace of mind, whatever it is that you're selling, so that the customer knows what to expect each and every time. Just like Chick-fil-A, I know that I'm going to get the best fast food experience, in my personal opinion, of all the chain restaurants. If I go to Chick-fil-A, or if I want high sound quality headphones, I'm probably going to purchase Bose. Or if I wanted a great driving experience, I'm probably going to go look at a Porsche, because I know what to expect. And the customer will go to buy. If you guys were in the middle of the desert in Africa, and you stumbled across a Coca-Cola Coke machine, you would probably walk up to it and buy that, because you knew exactly what to expect. A Coca-Cola is going to taste the same no matter where you are. And you've done that because you didn't want a surprise. You wanted to know what you were going to get when you put your money in that machine. Same thing happens with referrals as well. Referrals are a $0 cost of acquisition. So in the same way, when we're selling that peace of mind and we are giving customers no surprises when they come to purchase, they are also going to turn around and give you referrals. They're going to say, hey, you guys should go to Jeff's shop. He's great. I get, you know, whatever it is, a digital inspection, or he texts me when my car is done. He gives me a loaner whenever I drop it off, or they give me a ride to work. people will repeat that to their friends when they know what they're going to get. So meeting customers on their terms is where I run into an interesting set of objections with this in my job role. But I fell into this mindset even in my shop. I thought people were reluctant, let's say, to give me an email address because, I don't know, they're above 50 years old. Not true. Absolutely not true. I hear shop owners tell me all the time, well, I'm in a retirement community. Nobody really texts over here. There's no way that can be true. They text with their kids, their grandkids. They're on FaceTime with them. I really think that first and foremost, before we say, well, what kind of terms do customers want? How do we meet their terms, and how do we present and sell to customers the way that they're used to? I think we have to remove the preconceived notion that, I don't know, everyone under 40 years old, 35 years old is the only people that are going to be texting and emailing anything. In my personal experience and in my most successful clients that I see right now, they all say it's absolutely not the case. Now, your independent shop, your individual shop, you may experience that, but I'm speaking in generalities. What we find is absolutely not true. That right there is absolutely not true. And so one of the biggest things that we find in increase in average repair orders and close ratios is building that trust and transparency and sharing as much information with customers as you can. People tend to buy from those that they trust, right? You've got a similar product. You have parts and labor, and you have good technicians, and there's probably somebody else in your town that has similar. But how are you going to build that trust and transparency more so? I talked with a gentleman just last night. There's 7 shops in his town, 2 of which don't have websites. He's the only one doing digital inspections and offering things like text to pay, emailing and texting, digital inspections, estimates for approval, and so forth. He said nobody's even close to his average repair order. Nobody's even close to his revenue numbers. And these guys all come to him asking him what he's doing. He said, I'll show you right now. Here's how I build value in my business, and here's how we create that trust and transparency in the business. So for us, and in the numbers that we see, I've got one client that, I'm sure that many of you, which it's very odd to see, but I wish I'd done a poll, but many of you probably are already using things like digital inspection, texting and emailing, so forth. If you're not, I would highly recommend at least trying it out. Industry average from what we hear, I don't know how many of you have seen this, but I would definitely write this down. Check out the Tekmetric 500. If you want to see what other shops are doing across the nation, if you just Google Tekmetric 500, we have a Tekmetric 500 index. So think of the S&P 500. You can see what the average repair order is on the West Coast, Central US, Midwest, so forth. And that's in real time, by the way. That updates about every hour throughout the day. So if you saw really low numbers in the morning, look at the day before. But you can see trends, and you guys can sort those different dates and so forth. But we did that at the beginning of COVID and so forth to give everyone answers to the questions of what's happening in the industry. Now, the reason I bring that up is because the industry average is around $450. West Coast is definitely higher than, let's say, Texas or the Southeast. But the industry average is around $450. But this was mind-boggling, and I heard a digital inspection company say this, is that digital inspection and sharing those digital inspections through texting or other digital resources, adoption is only estimated between 25 and 35% in the entire industry. That was quite shocking to me, meaning that those of you that are using these digital resources right now, you're of the minority. You are already adopting this technology. So apparently there is between 65 and 75% of independent shop owners across the nation that are not doing that. And so I think that, those that are willing to adopt those technologies earlier on are going to be successful. I've got multiple customers right now that have had the best months. Jeff and I were talking about this before the meeting started, but best months they've ever had in their history of their company in the past 2 and 3 months. And I don't think it's an accident, because they've been forced to use these digital resources that were at their fingertips, and coronavirus actually brought these things upon them. Things like our text, not ours, but text to pay. Text to pay became wildly popular almost overnight. So utilizing these will take you, again, industry average says between 20 and 30% increase in your average repair order when you use digital inspections, taking pictures, taking videos, and sharing that with customers. Industry average is between 20 and 30% increase in your average repair order from those who do not use those resources. So you guys already know what your average repair orders are. Take those very rough numbers and see how quickly you can use those digital resources, communicate with those customers on their terms, and sharing that information with them in an easily digestible, easy to say yes or no, and easily trackable, whether they say yes or no, tracking that information very easily in your system. Now, I will tell you that some of the things that I always hear, my technicians back in the day, we didn't even have digital inspections, but multi-point inspections take too long. Well, multi-point inspections back then took too long, and digital inspections today supposedly take too long. But those average repair orders start increasing, and they see that overnight. The customer retention comes up, the customer satisfaction comes up. And so most often, these are some of the most common objections, if you will, to adopting this technology. But if that customer finds another shop that does use this technology and communicates on the customer's terms, now you have to go and spend that $300, $400, $500 to acquire a new customer to replace them. So how often will that happen to where before it becomes a model that's just not sustainable? So that being said, the next part is how do we now use that information to turn this into a sale? And this is something to where I have a lot of customers that ask me, they said, well, is Tekmetric trying to replace service advisor or digital vehicle inspection companies? Are they trying to replace service advisors and just turn this into texting and emailing and so forth? Absolutely not. There is a human touch that is involved in each and every one of these. And although they may not be looking to build a long-term relationship with a customer, with a shop necessarily, they are looking to have that interaction, have someone that explains that digital inspection picture or the video and so forth. And so something that I had happen to me, and I won't do this to you guys, but I brought a guy in who wanted to get a job at my shop. And the whole time he talked, he was kind of ho-hum and, kind of stern, faced and he wanted to work as a service advisor. And so I started smiling really big when I was talking with him, and I started talking with my hands like this. And then I sat back in my chair and I folded my arms like this. And then I crossed a leg. And once I did all that, I turned around and I asked him, I said, now stop. I said, look at what you're doing right now. I said, you're smiling really big, your arms are folded, and you've leaned back in your chair and your legs are crossed. And he was like, and I said, now look at me. I'm doing the exact same thing. I said, something that I was trying to teach this young man, and I did end up hiring him, and he did do really well, but this stuck with him, was people will mimic you. I had a sales trainer or sales manager a long time ago. I was probably 18, 19 years old. And this guy put a mirror in front of my desk or in front of my computer. And he said, smile and dial. And that's an old term, but it is true. People can hear in your voice if you're happy, if you're upbeat, if you're smiling. I had a service advisor. He unfortunately did not get to stick around, but I told him, I said, every time you call somebody, it's like you're giving them bad news, and you're not giving them bad news. The first thing you're doing is you're giving them information. And what we have to do is we have to build value. We have to let them know that we did take note of the reason that they brought their car in. We did do a courtesy inspection. It was 21 points, and I've got great news. For the most part, the car looks great. We did stumble across one thing, by the way. We did notice that X needs attention. I'm going to go ahead and put together a quote for you on that. And I did check with my parts vendors, and those parts are in stock, and I could still take care of your car today. And the issue that you did bring your car in for is Y. And this Y is going to take X, Y, Z to fix, and it's going to take this. Now I'm going to share that over to you in an estimate, and you guys approve, decline anything that you'd like us to do. But I wanted to go over that with you before I just sent that to you. That is how we build value in our product. The customer doesn't just think that the car was dropped off and that you just checked out a check engine light, you pulled a code and you called up AutoZone and they've got the part and they could have bought it for cheaper. And man, I wish I had just done that repair myself. They feel like they've received a service, a top-notch white glove service that has value to them. And this gentleman, he just unfortunately didn't end up getting it. He'd call them and say, "Oh man, you need 4 new tires." And it drove me crazy to hear him on those phone calls. And I tried to coach him, but it just wasn't the right fit. But that's the difference in building value in what your shop is doing all day, every day. But you have to be able to convey that. So having that customer mimic you, especially if you're dealing in person, enthusiasm, right? Sales is a transfer of knowledge and enthusiasm. I have to know more than that customer does. If I don't, they're not going to feel like they're getting what they paid for. And in order to get them to understand what I want them to do, which is repair their car and keep it safe and on the road, I have to have enthusiasm. I have to smile. I have to not sound like I'm telling them, "Hey, someone just backed into your car and we dented it." We want to say, "Hey, we got great news. We can get your car fixed and back on the road safely in the time frame that we promised you." So these are small things that you can implement literally tomorrow that make people say yes instead of, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that right now," or, "Oh, maybe next week." And now to my last point, as you see here on the screen, not every single job sells. Um, Follow-up is most certainly key. And I would say that I'm not sure, what type of softwares and whatnot that you use, but if you don't have a software that allows you to track very easily declined jobs, I would be shopping. I'd be shopping tomorrow because you're not going to get yes every single time. Rattling numbers off the top of my head, I think the average close ratio is around that 65 to 70% mark, and that's not bad at all. It's really not. But you've got to be recommending plenty of work. If you have a 100% close ratio, probably didn't inspect the car very well. But still, no matter what, not every single job is going to sell. So how do we track and how do we follow up with those customers? I've talked to people who say, well, if the customer says no, then when they say no, we have to open up a new screen and we have to create a declined job and we have to put the notes in there of what we said to them, what we quoted the customer, and then what they said, and I said, your service advisors aren't going to do that. I told the guy, I said, I think it's been a little too long since you've been on the desk. I said, service advisors don't generally have that much time to take care of something like that. So I think that you're missing out on a lot of business because you can't go back and see all the times that those customers said no, and then turn that over to your marketing company. And so that marketing company can then do that follow-up. Hey, we saw that, we recommended 4 tires for you last month. Here's a $50 certificate for, free mountain balance of at least 2 of them, or whatever it may be, to get them to come back in the door, because we don't want them to go down the road to the other shops. We want them to come back in ours because we've acquired that customer. We want to keep them coming back in. Now, in all of these scenarios, I'm always referring to technology answering these problems. And so for us as a company, both in our shops, as we're speaking from our own personal experience, I wish Sunil could have joined me because he can talk about this, but even the technology that he was juggling back in 2007, 2008, and the technology that we try to create now for customers, this right here is absolutely, in my personal opinion, technology is your friend in this industry. This is how you build value in each and every business. This is how you get customers to understand very quickly in a very small snapshot what it is that you are trying to explain to them, which at the point in time that those customers do understand, they have a much higher likelihood of saying yes. Once they understand, once they know why they need it, and if you've done so at a fair price, you have a higher likelihood, you've increased your likelihood of getting a yes instead of a no. Now, that being said, if you're saying, well, the way that I run the business was the same way that my granddad did and my dad did, you're Blockbuster, in my personal opinion. No offense, but it's Blockbuster. And at some point, the times have not caught up to them yet. I run into shop owners like this every single day. That it's going to catch you eventually. And people are becoming more demanding. The customers that we deal with each and every day are more demanding, and they expect that experience in each and every transaction that they have. It doesn't matter if they're going to Shake Shack or Panera, or if they're coming to an auto repair shop, or if they're walking up to that the Coca-Cola machine in the middle of the desert. They have a set of expectations, and if they're not being met, we all know that the generations that are coming along now, the ones that have the money, that have the buying power, if their desires are not being met, they just go on to the next one. So, that being said, how are we providing customers? These are just questions, and these are things that I want you guys to all think about, and that I had to think about in my own business was, how are we providing that customer? And like I said here in a hint, fixing the cars is just not enough. Just repairing that car is not enough for today's customers. So creating that experience and making that frictionless transaction for the customer is what will turn them into customers for life. And so one thing that I would love to bring up, and I got this from a business coach, and it was the best expense. I had no idea. I looked at it as an expense back then, but it was the best investment that I ever had. No different than the ATE conference, right? That training and investing in your business. This gentleman was one of the best investments I ever made, and he said, PJ, he said, here is what I can give you an example of. He said, if you were a shoe salesman and you were selling a woman's shoe, and you walked up to her and you give her a shoe and it doesn't fit, you can either tell her that her foot is too fat for the shoe, or you can tell her, I'm so sorry, I grabbed the wrong size for your foot, man. And he said, one of those is going to get you the result that you want. The other one might end up giving you a kick in the head. But there's two ways of saying the same thing, and you have to find the best way to say that. So with us, we find that shops are most successful when they are embracing that technology, not as a replacement, but as a supplement to what service advisors, service writers are doing. Number two, that sales coaching, right? Smiling and dialing, right? Customers are going to mimic everything that your service advisors are doing, and that's what's going to increase when those customers say yes as opposed to no. So that being said, using technology to share that information over to each and every customer, showing them in a quick snapshot ways. Now, obviously, these are some screenshots that we have from Tekmetric, but there's a lot of companies out there. This is not supposed to be a Tekmetric show. This is literally out there with a number of facets. Of course, we'd love to have each and every one of you join us, but look for the one that fits your business the best. Share this information. Give them a nice, colorful little graph. Show them what's going on with their car. Give them the buying power. In that middle screen, let them approve and decline. Each and every line item, cafeteria style, track what they turn down so that we have the opportunity to not lose that customer. Let's take another swing at them. Let's run a declined jobs list from last week. And that's the one that Jeff, the owner of the shop, Jeff picks up the phone and calls each and every one of those 10 customers that may have turned down work last week and said, hey, I'm the owner of Jeff's Auto Repair Shop. I would love to follow up with you and just check in to see if there's anything we could have done differently. I saw that you guys turned down those brakes, and we did note that they were very low. Is there anything we could have done differently to earn your business? Well, how do we track that, and how do we follow up with it? And lastly, especially right now, things with touchless payment options, being able to meet customers on their terms, especially those with immunodeficiencies, finding a way that they can still do business and take care of their cars and do the things that they need to do from anywhere in the world. So same thing with shop owners. We're pretty big on the whole cloud-based technology across the planet practically. Everything that is out there, finding a way. You got to think about your Facebook accounts, your Spotify or Pandora Music, Amazon for that matter. Being able to log in and run your businesses from anywhere, anytime. it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial in these times, using things like a screen share or something like that to remote into a computer, taking that away from a service advisor that may be writing a ticket or something. I've heard all sorts of things. Look for technology in your own shop that meets your demands as well, right? Looking for something to where you guys can work from a beach in Tahiti if you wanted to, or sitting there in your office if you so choose. So the gist of this is meeting customers at the, like I said, on their terms, utilizing and embracing that technology and finding those cutting edges to keep you ahead of your competition. So that being said, that is what I have for today. And I will stop sharing my screen and happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thanks, PJ.
Yes, I'm happy to help. I have a couple of them here. Recommend job pricing as a single number, not parts and labor. Yes, that is a fantastic question. I don't get that very often. Now, I will say that check with local laws. There are a number of states where you cannot do package pricing, but package pricing we see much higher success rates with. One of the things that I hated about the software that I used to use was we had to go in and alter the entire shop in order to change the transparency of an RO. Like when I did work for a warranty company or an insurance company, I had to show part numbers and labor costs and labor hours and so forth. But speaking for our own software, you can customize that transparency. And if you just want to sell just a job and you want to say replace the brake pads, $450. That's all it says. If you want to give a description of how many labor hours, how much your labor rate is, if you want to show the parts description, part numbers, you can do all of that as well. But yes, in terms of sales, I have to be honest with you. The shop that I take my personal cars to, I have absolutely no clue what their labor rate is. No idea. And I don't care because I know enough about the industry to know that they're fair with me on their pricing. They will text me. They do text me my digital inspections. They text me my estimates and I approve it right from my phone. When my job is being on a phone all day, I'm not looking for an additional phone call. So they provide what I want and they provide it in a fashion that I like. And so I've never asked them what's the cost of the parts, what's the cost of labor. So yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
I see some folks said between 250 and 550, so that falls in line with what I was expecting in terms of a cost of acquisition of a new customer. So that still falls in line with other numbers that I've been told. So that right there is that's a good example of what it costs you to gain each and every new customer. So retaining those that you have are most important.
Any other questions? Well, thanks, PJ. I appreciate you being on today and a great presentation. And I want to thank everyone for being on today. And if you have any questions about the virtual ATE, make sure and you can ask right now if you want, or you can give us a call and we'd be more than glad to help you get signed up. And we're looking forward to having you at the virtual ATE for the 4 days coming up next week. Next week, we will not be having a lunch and learn because we will be doing ATE virtual. So thanks everyone for being on, and we can't do what we do without you guys. So thanks a lot.
Thank y'all so much. See you soon.
Thank you, PJ. Thank you.
Bye-bye.